I'm back today to answer a question that I've actually gotten quite a lot, which is how can I connect with my characters? You might be thinking that this is only relevant for those people who are writing fiction, but that is not the case. You can also use this trick if you are writing memoir or narrative nonfiction, because it really helps you to dive into, especially in nonfiction, characters who are not yourself, or for fiction writers, characters that are not the protagonist. The truth is that even if you have an amazing story and the character arc, the story arc for the protagonist is spot on, if you don't have greater knowledge of every one of your support characters, then it can really let your whole story down. So this is especially for you if you've had feedback from an editor, a beta reader, a friend, or maybe even a publisher that says they love it, but they just weren't connecting enough with the voice. Now, I want to give a caveat to that. That could just be that person. So I don't want you to take all the feedback that you get to heart. Don't take it personally. But if you know that you could reach greater depth with your characters, then this one trick that I have might revolutionize everything. You can bring it to the table before you even get started writing. If you really love the planning process, then this may be something that you want to do for each of your characters. But otherwise, it's totally okay if you are in editing mode or you are in editing the third or the fourth or the fifth or we won't say how many times one might edit their manuscript. But if you think that character connection is really one of the big issues, then this trick is going to help you. What is the trick? Well, if you have ever done inner child work in psychology, or you are more of a woo person, you might have run across this. It's really effective. I want you to write a letter to your character. Truth be told, you could do this just thinking in your head, but I find that writing is really, really effective. And then, of course, you've got the proof written on the page. I want you to write the letter to them, and I want you to allow them to write a letter or a response back to you. You can do it like a dialogue. It doesn't have to be a long letter. It can just be one sentence. Or you could do it as a letter and then get a letter back. What would you ask in this letter? I'm glad you asked, because I have 3 top tips for the best questions to ask your character. Now, the first tip is one that's really helpful if you are finding yourself feeling a little bit blocked, like you don't know exactly what the character is going to say, or just it's not flowing for you. Write a letter or a sentence to the character asking, what am I missing? Get into dialogue with them. What am I missing from this scene, from this dynamic? What's going on that I'm not getting? And just see what they say. The truth is that anything that you discover in this process may well not end up in the manuscript itself, but it will give you incredible insight into not only your character, but the dynamic. And here's the thing, every one of the characters really does have its own little story arc, right? It doesn't have to be as thorough, and we're certainly not talking about the unnamed characters in your story, but anybody who's fairly prominent, you might want to dive into what their motivations are. It sounds like something an actor might do, but it is really, really helpful for you to give a story that hits all of those points for the reader themselves. So it's a second question you might ask. What do you need me to know? Now, this goes along with what I just said, that this may be something that doesn't actually end up in the manuscript itself, but if it explains their motivation, their point of view, and especially if you've been writing a story in first person, and this is the character that's not first person, this might be just an incredible bombshell for you. You haven't been thinking about things through their eyes. And if you watched a series that I did on the writer's journey, which breaks down the hero's journey, there was one part that shared, they weren't talking about the antagonist, but what they were saying is that often it's the villain, but often the villain thinks that they're the protagonist of their own story, right? So your support characters may think the same thing. And if you've been taking everything from just your protagonist's point of view, I mean, if that's the way that your story is structured, fair play, especially if you're writing a sort of a psychological thriller or with an unreliable narrator, that makes sense. But if not, or even if so, it would be really helpful to know what the hell the other character is really thinking and what is really going on in their mind, even if you don't share it directly with the reader. There is some magic that goes on when you have that insight. The way that you write is different, and the reader will pick that up, whether or not you share particular details or not. The third question, and this is probably my favorite now, and it's because it works magic even for those of you who are skeptics in the audience, because I have used this particular trick with the most logical, straight-laced people, and it reveals some incredible insights. And that is, ask your character to share a memory or memories with you. And don't judge what comes up. Don't say, oh, that's too much like what happened to me. Just get started responding as they would respond and see what comes up. And have fun with it. Have fun, because at the end of the day, when we're trying to get this greater depth or insight or knowledge or connection, it has to be a little bit of fun. If it is all up here and hyper intellectual, I'll be real with you, your reader doesn't love it. They're not connecting. There has to be something going on here. And if you're having fun, I guarantee that is happening. Okay? So hopefully those questions help you. Get started and report back to me. Leave me a comment below, or comment with a further question, a follow-up question to this, or maybe even you have a success that you'd like to share with others where you've used a process, this process or a process like it, where it's really helped you get to another level with your characters. I would love to hear it. As always, comment below with your question and I can answer it on an upcoming episode, or send me an email to anjanette@storyaslife. And until next time, you have a story to write and it is time to tell it. See you then. Bye.